Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuhu. We have a couple of people who have already joined in. We have some who are still yet to join. A warm welcome to all the people who have already joined. And if you know somebody who have registered for this session and not yet joined, I request you to please give them a reminder message, so that inshallah they could also get benefited from this wonderful web talk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome to the second day of our 5 days Zakat talk, a global online Zakat conference brought to you by Association of Muslim Professionals, indiazakat.com and ummah1.com. I am Mohammad Zamir Hussain, a member of National Team for Employability Training Program of AMP. By profession, I am a trainer, career counselor, and I head a company by name Zenith Tech Solutions. I'll be your host for this session and will accompany you on this beautiful learning journey about Zakat, where we are discussing Zakat for economic empowerment of the Ummah. On behalf of AMP, indiazakat.com and ummah1.com, I extend my warm welcome to one and all, and especially to our speakers for the day, Mufti Yousuf Sultan, Mufti Ateeq Ahmed Bastawi, and Dr. Atef Elsabrawy. Also, I would like to welcome Ahmed Idrisi, President AMP, and all others who are present here today with us. Now, I would like to call Khalandar Azad to give a brief introduction about indiazakat.com. Over to you, Brother Khalandar.
Thank you so much, Brother Zamir, for introducing me. I take this opportunity to introduce indiazakat.com. Before that, let me put some light over this Zakat conference. This webinar series of virtual Zakat talks spread over a period of 5 days for 2 hours each, bringing together Islamic scholars, global thought leaders, technologists, and organizations to help you understand better Zakat in a better way, reform Zakat management, and empower the Ummah. The vision of this Zakat conference is to refresh and revolutionize the process of Zakat management for economic empowerment of the community and the country at large. The objectives of this conference is to strengthening the roots, that is to educate people about important verticals of Zakat in the light of Quran and Sunnah, making it clear, that is clearing most of the important doubts and queries people have about Zakat, professional and technical upgradation, and most important objective of this conference is uniting for good, uniting like-minded individuals and organizations in India from other Zakat organizations for efficient networking, learning, and economic development. This web series is started under the ambit of indiazakat.com. So now I would like to talk about indiazakat.com. This indiazakat.com was started on the Chandrat of Ramzan 2020. So it is almost a baby of 2 years for this Ramzan. indiazakat.com is one of its kind of a social crowdfunding platform floated by the Association of Muslim Professionals with a view to bring the Zakat seekers and the Zakat givers on a unified platform. Its objectives is to undertake its operation purely with the intent of bringing socio-economic transformation in the lives of the people without seeking to generate any commercial surplus. Most of the people dispense necessary Zakat amount, but in an unorganized to most extent. Such unorganized disbursement isn't a sustainable solution to the backwardness of the community. Therefore, AMP has decided to undertake an initiative for implementation of a collective system of Zakat. This platform is a step in the direction of mobilizing the collection of Zakat and other charities in a collaborative way and channelize these collections for providing benefits to the poor and backward sections of the society for their overall survival, upliftment, development, and growth. indiazakat.com has different verticals in it. To name a few, it has a Zakat Council. This council consists of members who are experts in one of the fields or any of the fields like Islamic finance, Zakat management, law, marketing, media, public relations, strategic planning, health, social services, education, etc., etc. This council makes sure that the day-to-day management is carried out effectively. The other vertical of this is Zakat Advisory Board. It consists of ulamas and Muftis and experts on matters of Islamic finance. The board shall interpret the principles of Zakat and give its decision relating to collection of and disbursement of Zakat funds or their deployment or investment. The most important part of this indiazakat.com is another vertical which has volunteers in it, India Zakat Volunteers. This makes the crux of the indiazakat.com, and the success of indiazakat.com is the bunch of the volunteers that are working day in and day out. Whenever, just to brief about the process of indiazakat.com, whenever a cause is raised on the platform, the backend team assigns a cause to the cause manager. Each cause is assigned to particular cause manager. This cause manager connects with the beneficiary, receives the basic KYC documents. That is the first level of check. The second level of check is maybe we go for a physical verification or background verification of the beneficiary. And the third level, maybe we call the reference calling in case of scholarship that we have taken of the Imam of Masjid within the vicinity of that particular beneficiary. After this, the cause manager, if he is satisfied with the documents and with the conversation of the Imam, then he asks for the content team to review the content of the cause. Once the content is reviewed, then it is asked for the approval. Once the cause is approved by the approver, seeing all the documents, then the cause goes live, then the crowdfunding starts. After this social media team takes the cause and then promotes it on various social media platforms. Once the cause is completed, full amount is disbursed. This is one of the unique feature of indiazakat.com. indiazakat.com does not charge a single penny from the beneficiary or from the donors towards the other costs. That is one of the unique feature of this indiazakat.com. So Zakat volunteers play a very important role in right from the starting of the cause till the ending of the cause. After the cause is completed, full amount is disbursed to the beneficiary, either to the institutions if it is education cause, to the medical hospitals if it is a medical cause, to the vendors if it is a livelihood cause. And after that, the post payout team collects the bills, collects the testimonials, receipts from the beneficiaries. Till here, our volunteers work day in and day out. So this is the unique part of indiazakat.com. indiazakat.com has till date raised more than 8 crore rupees towards 2,800 causes, and these 8 crore plus rupees have been received from 26,000 plus donations from 700 plus cities. So this is the unique features of the indiazakat.com. Now, indiazakat.com also strives hard to amalgamate with other NGOs as well. indiazakat.com is open for affiliation with it. indiazakat.com offers different benefits to NGOs who are connecting with it. They can raise the cause on behalf of the beneficiaries. They can raise the cause on behalf of the individuals or the NGO itself for different causes. Like, for example, when there are calamities or any riots, they can raise the cause in indiazakat.com. indiazakat.com gives them the platform, and whatever the amount is received on the platform, same amount will be disbursed to the NGO. So this is something about indiazakat.com. The indiazakat.com is a part of AMP, Association of Muslim Professionals. It runs different. Zamir bhai, can you please change the slide? AMP has different verticals of the projects in it. One among them is indiazakat.com. AMP was founded by professional Muslims, a bunch of professional Muslims, like-minded professional Muslims who thought of something innovative in the benefit of the society, and this today what we are seeing is the result of that. It is one of the registered Section 8 non-profit organization which is striving towards the welfare of the society and the nation as a whole. It focuses on educational and economic empowerment. Zakat, it has teams throughout the nation and different parts of the states, and in different states we have different city teams, and along with that we have international chapters, and AMP is registered with AMP in USA, Australia, Canada, etc., etc. So AMP Zakat Fund, it was initially working From 2013 onwards, year on year, it scaled growth, collective utilization of zakat funds, empowerment of underprivileged Muslims. So this is about AMP. The next important organization which has joined hands for this particular conference is the Ummah One. Ummah One is a social organization, a marketing and technology solution which operates scalable operations, support across creating, designing, creative libraries, content creation, content management, volunteer management, digital marketing, social media marketing. Digital first marketing agency as your partner, putting your organization on a digital and technology transformation. No profit, no loss motive. So for more information, we can visit umma1.com for a free audit. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you so much, Brother Zamir and other participants for giving me an opportunity to speak something about indiazakat.com, AMP and Ummah One. Thank you.
Thank you for that detailed and very impactful introduction of indiazakat.com, Brother Khalandar. We all are very aware that indiazakat.com is a flagship program of AMP, but what's very important is in a very short span of time, indiazakat.com has achieved remarkable success, and kudos to all the team behind me. Allah give you more and more success in the coming years. Yesterday, we discussed on this forum, understanding zakat from Quran and Sunnah, under which we were enlightened as to what zakat is and how it is to be calculated, how it is to be given, and to whom all it can be given. And today we have speakers who are not less than an oracle, who will help us understand how zakat can be used for economic empowerment of the ummah. As we all know, Islam is a deen and not just a religion. As Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, ayah number 19, Inna deena indallahil Islam. Truly the religion with Allah is Islam. And thus, Islam does talks and guides on all walks of our lives. And finance and economics are no exception. To increase our understanding as to how zakat is not just a microeconomic factor, but also a macroeconomic factor, our today's topic for discussion is utilizing the power of zakat for economic empowerment and self-sustainability of Muslims and nation building. So here I would like to introduce and invite our first speaker for the day, Mufti Yousuf Sultan. Mufti Yousuf Sultan is a certified Sharia advisor, an auditor from CSAA, from Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, AUFI, Bahrain, and an AUFI Master Trainer too. He holds an MSc degree in Islamic Finance from INSIF, Malaysia. Earlier, he graduated as a Mufti in Sharia and Islamic Jurisprudence from Jamia Sharia, Malibagh, Dhaka. He is also a registered Sharia advisor with the Securities Commission of Malaysia and a certified Islamic finance executive from Ateeq, Dubai. Mr. Yousuf is the founder and CEO of Adl Advisory in Malaysia, which provides Sharia advisory consultancy and training services to various industries. Mr. Yousuf also co-founded IFA Consultancy in Bangladesh, a pioneering institution promoting Islamic finance to the mass through training, workshops, seminars, and consultancy. With a greater honor, I invite Mufti Yousuf to share his views on utilizing the power of zakat for economic empowerment of self-sustainability of Muslims and nation building. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Brother Yousuf. Please, over to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khairan, Brother Zamir, for your kind introduction. Can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Alhamdulillah, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. I need the permission to share my slides, please.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to Associate of Muslim Professionals, Ummah One, as well as indiazakat.com. It has been a wonderful initiative, definitely, especially if we look at the tendency of the Muslims throughout the globe, paying most of the zakat during Ramadan. So it's very timely, I would say. Now, going back to my topic, I would like to keep it brief and short, inshallah. Firstly, I would like to share a few thoughts on zakat, and then a few of my observations on how Muslims have the attitude towards zakat, and then how zakat was regarded in the initial Islamic era in terms of the fiscal policy, economic empowerment, and how zakat can solve the issues today that we have in most cases. So inshallah, I will go gradually. So very first thing, going about the basics. I know that yesterday things were covered, but just to maybe perhaps like a refreshment, refreshing the memories of what have been discussed yesterday. Firstly, of course, as we know, zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It has been often emphasized in Al-Quran by being mentioned together with Salat. Quran is missing the word Quran here. And if we look at how the companions Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in had the perception towards zakat, is like it was undetachable from any other actions of Islam. And this is why when the Prophet ﷺ left this world and the Khilafah was given to Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu an, and he noticed that some of the Muslims denied giving zakat or basically reserved themselves from paying some of the zakat, he didn't hesitate to declare war against them. And he profoundly said, Ayanqusu din wa ana hayy. Will the deen decrease or get decreased while I'm alive? So that's the spirit they had towards zakat. Now, if we look at the literatures or the reports of Sharia, we see zakat is basically a specific type of charity. Now, charity, by the way, or sadaqah, can be monetary, can be non-monetary, like even a smile towards our fellow brother in Islam could be also considered as a charity, as a sadaqah. Tabassumuka fi wajhi akhika sadaqah, as Prophet ﷺ mentions. But when it comes to monetary charity, we have general sadaqah, general charity. We have perpetual charity, or sadaqah jariyah, as Prophet ﷺ mentioned that إذا مات الإنسان انقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث, that when a person dies, all of his a'mal, all of his actions stop except for 3. So one of the 3 is sadaqah jariyah, a continuing charity. So waqf is a kind of perpetual charity, a continuing charity, which keeps sending rewards to the person even when he's in his grave. And then we have zakat, which is basically an obligation. Now, zakat, like when we talk about sadaqah or charity, it can be something that can be given to anyone. I mentioned that it can be even non-monetary. When it comes to sadaqah jariyah, it can be also done in various different ways. But when it comes to zakat, if you look at the instruction that the Prophet ﷺ gave to Mu'az ibn Jabal radiallahu anh, when he was sent to Yemen, he specifically mentioned to him that when you let the people know that Allah Ta'ala iftarada alayhim fi zakatan fi amwalihim tu'khazu min ghaniyihim faturaddu ala faqirihim, that you let the people know, inform the people that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has obligated zakat on their wealth, which would be taken from their rich and given to their poor. And if you look at also the beneficiaries mentioned in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60, we will see most of the criteria are basically denotes direct charity, except for the criteria of fi sabilillah, which also had very specific purpose. I'm not going into details. Now, why I'm emphasizing on that is that one of the very reason of zakat, objective of zakat, is to basically eradicate poverty, so that there is a fair balance between the rich and the poor in the society. Now, when we utilize, of course, there is fiqh differences. I'm not going into that. But when we utilize zakat for many other purposes, where we can use waqf fund, we can use general sadaqah fund, we basically deprive the poor, the ones who have the very right in zakat. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala very strongly mentioned in the Quran, وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. In the wealth of the rich, there is haqq, there is right of the poor and the deprived. Anyway, so zakat basically fulfills the purpose of our existence as well, basically to have solidarity between the human beings in this world. And it's only 2.5% of selected wealth. Like if we look at even the taxation system, anything and everything that we earn throughout the year would be subject to tax, right? But zakat is not that. Zakat is only 2.5% of our selected wealth that is in our hand or cash. I mean, of course, in our ownership on the date of zakat, on the zakat cycle. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, he could have obligated entire 100% of our wealth, and he rightly deserves to order something so, because he mentioned lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard, everything that is there in the heavens and the earth and in between belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he has the ultimate ownership. Today we have taxes ranging from 10% up to 40 or even more percentage in various countries of the globe, around the globe. So 2.5% is a very minimum one, has a very specific purpose to directly relieve the poor to specific beneficiaries from the problems that they have. It's an investment in the blessing in this world, in the world hereafter. It's not an expense. We shouldn't look into it as an expense, not like a penalty of our wealth, not like a tax as many would wrongly see it. It's rather an insurance of our wealth. And the insurance provider is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, the creator of the wealth, the creator of the human being. Now, having said that, this slide basically has some of my observations throughout the last decade. Alhamdulillah, Allah gave me opportunity to serve in a couple of Darul Iftas and also as in the capacity of Imam Khatib for a few years, and then also the teacher, and providing zakat sessions and also consultancies in my institutions in Bangladesh, in Malaysia, and other clients as well. So what I observed that it should be read as a caution because it's not backed by any survey. But in my personal experience, what I found that Muslims in most cases, either they don't know about zakat properly, or they don't care, or they know but they don't, as I mentioned, they don't care. They are even scared. They see zakat as a tax, as a penalty of their wealth, right? So and they try to do a lot of funny things to avoid zakat, whereby if we look at the very purpose of zakat, as I mentioned in the previous slide, it's not just an obligation, it's an investment in the blessing in this world, in the hereafter, and also investment in the humanity, in the solidarity with the poor and other classes of human beings. If you look at the Muslim world, a lot of population are under poverty. Yes, if we go strictly with the poverty line, we may have good numbers, right? 20%, 30%, sounds good. That okay, 70% is above the poverty line. But if we look at their actual day-to-day life, can they eat properly? What are they eating actually, right? Do they have enough nutrition? Do they have enough health? Do they have enough education? That would answer exactly, and particularly in our Muslims, in the case of Muslims, most of the Muslims around the globe are under the poverty line, under the actual poverty, real poverty. I'm not going with the poverty line that has been imposed upon us. Rather, I would call it real poverty. Now, this is why Muslims really need to care about it. Why Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anh wanted to wage a war against those who denied zakat. Definitely, it is something profoundly passed from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the companions of Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and they understood that if you remove zakat from the equation, it becomes a really imbalanced economy, imbalanced Muslims, imbalanced individuals, imbalanced societies, and we go on. So if you look at the early Islamic era, as I was mentioning, it was a very important component of the overall fiscal policy. If you look at the era of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, when Medina was just a new state, with the charter being formed and the people, community coming together, right? And then followed by the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, and the Khulafa Rashidun, and later on as well. We see zakat was collected centrally under the Baitul Mal, and it was also disbursed properly as part of the beneficiaries that has been specified by Al-Quran Kareem. It was part of the, like when today we have fiscal budget, usually announced by the government, by the central banks, right? So if we look from the budget point of view, You have an income, source of income, and you have a destination for expenditure. We did some simulations in the context of Bangladesh. We tried to do some simulations, and we found that in the budget, usually it's a deficit budget. You have $100,000, but you want to spend $300,000. What do? With the additional deficit of $200,000? You go to countries or maybe World Bank, IMF, and ask for loans. And that's a ribawi loan, definitely, without any question, and with additional impositions of a lot of conditions, etc. And furthermore, so every year we have to pay riba, we have to pay interest, we get more poor, and we have to put more budget to eradicate that poor, to eradicate that poverty. So it keeps going on, it keeps going on. But when we look at Islam's point of view and the early Islamic era, so zakat was part of the fiscal budget. It's a part of income. It's a part of the source of income, and it has a specific purpose. So no corruption there, no misuse of the funds. It will go exactly as to the beneficiaries as defined by Al-Quran Kareem. And why Al-Quran Kareem defined the very beneficiaries? Because it suggests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a very clear objective in that. If we follow that, definitely there would be benefit for the ummah, for the humanity. So we see that has been there in the early Islamic era, and at some point we saw even that the beneficiaries became lower and lower, because if you collect the zakat efficiently and you distribute efficiently, disperse it efficiently, definitely at some point the poverty level would go down and people will become more and more self-sustainable. The economy would become more sustainable if the people and the individuals are sustainable. So that's the very purpose of zakat. And now, if you look at the many reasons why ummah is suffering, one reason could be attributed also to mismanagement of zakat. Of course, it's not everything, but it's also a very vital part. Because when we are not managing zakat properly, it really shows that the flow of money, the circulation of money is not proper. The rich is become rich and rich and rich. The poor is become even poor. All right. So if we look at from Islamic finance alternatives, from the public budget financing heads, so we see zakat can actually solve several heads. It can solve poverty alleviation, rural development, also food, social welfare, even to some extent healthcare and education. Even though healthcare and education are more supposed to be under finance under waqf, but we can also finance through zakat. And then there are other instruments as well. Since those are not the topic of today, we will not go there, inshallah. Now, in this slide, we have a reference of a survey from Association of Muslim Professionals. We see that this survey shows that around 77% of respondents believed zakat has the potential to transform the Muslim community in India. And as we have mentioned about from the Quran and Sunnah, as well as the early Islamic era, definitely, even though 77% believes, but definitely if we try to manage it efficiently, there is high potential. Last but not least, if we can go through a central zakat fund for the whole India, as well as replicate the same model in other countries, definitely it will reap more benefits, inshallah. And as India zakat, it was mentioned in the introduction, it really is very pleasing to see such thing happening. We need to continue educating our rich to calculate zakat properly, to pay zakat on time, to pay zakat efficiently, in the most efficient manner, the most beneficial manner to the beneficiaries, in order to make them self-sustainable, so that the economy as a whole also becomes sustainable. And we also need to empower such entities, such institutions, such initiatives like India Zakat and other initiatives throughout the globe, who are emerging with young professionals, with volunteers, mashallah, to manage zakat efficiently. That's how we create empowerment through zakat. I believe it's a great initiative by India Zakat and other related entities, and we hope that this continues on. And inshallah, at Adal Advisory as well, we provide several different types of consultancies and advisories, including zakat advisory for corporates and institutions. And inshallah, we are here together we are looking forward to an ummah where zakat will be distributed in much more efficient manner, and no one will be left behind, inshallah. With all that, inshallah, I will end my session. I hope it was a brief and concise, but I tried to articulate a few of my thoughts. Jazakumullah khair.
Wayakum khair, Mufti. It was really very enlightening, and Jazakallah khair for sharing a couple of very important things. You do started with talking about the basics of zakat, and you also had a very important question asking there about, do we Muslims actually pay the zakat regularly? I think that's a very big question we all do ask ourselves and ask our community. And we have a couple of questions here, Mufti, and we will we'll seek your help to get them answered. So one is based out of your experience, like, being into various countries and playing different roles. Is there any one country which has utilized zakat fund in a central way, and which could be as an example for a country like India to, like, follow? So do you have any such example which you can share with us, a case study, possibly a case study that we can look off?
Yeah, definitely. I think the case study of Malaysia is certainly something that can be followed. Sorry, I think I interrupted you. Have you finished the question?
Yeah, I did. Please continue.
Okay, Jazakallah. So yeah, definitely the case study of Malaysia is a very good one. We can see that Malaysia has several states, and each state has its own zakat body managed under the Sultan of the state and the religious regulator of the state. And of course, they have some very efficient, I would say. Of course, there are some issues as well, but overall, if you look at the larger scale, one of the best countries to manage zakat properly. And few features I would highlight. Like, one of the features is that employees from different entities or institutions, they can opt in for automatic zakat payment. Like, every month, instead of paying automatic deducting their taxes, they can opt in to pay zakat automatically as a portion of their salary. Now, end of the year, when they are about to submit the taxes, let's say after a year of working, the total tax is about 10,000 ringgit, but he has already paid around, let's say, 10,000 zakat. So what will happen is that the entire tax, I mean, he can deduct the entire zakat from the tax, so that the tax payable would be zero. So that really gives a lot of incentive to the Muslims to pay zakat, because it's offsetting from the taxes, from the government taxes as well. So this is one of the thing. Another thing is also, like, here the zakat institutions give an opportunities, like the zakat institutions who are eligible to collect zakat as an amil, as a amil of the zakat. The payers of zakat, let's say a university, okay? A university wants to collect the zakat from all of its professors, faculties, staffs. Now, what they can negotiate with the entity that, okay, we will pay you every year, let's say 100,000 ringgit of zakat, but we want 40% of it or 50% of it back, so that we can disperse in our own way. So what would happen is that 40 or 50% they can use that is for scholarship, for different other ways. So that's a beauty, basically, but it's also logged in the central zakat management body as well. So that's one of the good things. I think there are a few more, several more things to learn from the case study of Malaysia. Indonesia is also in the same going through the same path of this. I think India and other Muslim countries can replicate that model definitely. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khair for that detailed answer. And no doubt, I think one can definitely look on for Malaysia to follow the system. And another question quickly, Mufti Yousuf, I would like to ask is, being into a minority, like in a country in India where Muslims are in minority, and we do have a tax system here which is not actually, like, linked to the taxes here. So here the Muslims often feel like, we are paying double taxes, or we are paying double zakat, one in the name of zakat and one in the name of tax. So sometimes either they run away from zakat, or in other case they run away from tax. So what would you like to say? Is paying a tax also of countries or lands tax an obligatory duty on the Muslims? That's my question.
Okay, I thought the question would be the other one.
No,
All
that we
right,
are paying
let me start with the other one. Like as I mentioned in my slide as well, like this is something that I have come across many. I mean, especially the most rich have this fear most. This is, I mean, they were supposed to pay even more, right? Because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has blessed with them with so much wealth. As a sign of gratitude, it should have been the default state of every Muslim to pay more charity. But unfortunately, that has become a fear, right? Especially when they have to pay taxes. Now, zakat, I mean, if I want to first emphasize on zakat, as I mentioned, we have to work on the mindset. It cannot be compared with the tax or any other payables. We have to pay rentals for our house as well. We have to pay fees for our education. We have to pay hospital bills. But can we compare those with zakat? Cannot. It's a different thing altogether. It's not an apple to apple comparison at all. This is the very first thing we have to work out on. It's an investment into blessing, and there are multiple. I mean, I have, as I mentioned, I'm talking from experience. A lot of individuals, they mentioned that zakat indeed brought literal barakah, literal blessing, literal increase in their wealth. It's just everyone can experience that. For me, I see this as an opportunity for every Muslim, and alhamdulillah, I'm happy to say that I tried to exercise zakat when I was even just a student earning, just managing a few. I found that, like, when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, the Prophet is mentioning 5 pillars. So we are practicing shahada, we are practicing siyam, the fasting. We are, what about zakat and what about hajj? Those two are for the wealthy. But if I can afford that, if I even, I mean, it's a very minimal one, then I'm someone very opportunity, alhamdulillah. So this is the very first thing. We have to look at completely differently, not comparing this with tax. Now, when it comes to taxes, is tax an obligation? I would not have any direct answer in this session. There are other Mufti Sabs, I think Mufti Sabs can answer. But for a state order to become an obligation, the state also needs to follow the obligations of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, isn't it? That should answer the question. But of course, while we are saying that, a Muslim can never, say a lie, can never, do fraud in any manner. That's something that's a very fundamental characteristic for every believer. Yeah, Jazakallah khairan.
Wayakum khair, Sheikh. Mashallah, that was very nice of you taking patiently our questions and answering. Jazakallah khair for also your thoughts about how zakat can, empower the community. So now I would like to, thank you, Mufti Yousuf. Jazakumullah khair. Now let me introduce and invite our second speaker for the day, Mufti Ateeq Ahmed Bastawi. Ateeq Ahmed bin Haji Muhammad Rafiq is an eminent personality who is heading Islamic studies at Nadwatul Ulama in Lucknow, India, and since 1980. He is also General Secretary Fiqh Academy, India, and Sir early education happened in Madrasa Nurul Ulum, Baruch. He has completed his Fazilat Ifta from Darul Ulum Deoband during the years 1973 and 74. Few of the posts Sir is holding, as well as is responsible for our Nazim, administrator of Majlis-e-Tahqiqat Sharia at Nadwatul Ulama. Sadar Bani, president and founder of Muados Sharia Lucknow. Rukun Asasi wa Rukun Amaliya, All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Rukun Asasi, All India Mili Council. Rukun Asasi, Al Mahadul Ali Al Islami, Fulwari Sharif, Patna. Sir is also an author. He has penned down many books, more than 22 books what he has penned down, and couple of them to just which I could name in this short time is Mufakira Islam, Hazrat Maulana Sayyid Abul Hassan Ali Nadwi, Shakhsiyat Afkar or Mukatib, Allama Muhammad Anwar Sheikh Kashmiri Ulumul Afkar, Hindustan mein Nifaz Shariat, Zakat ki Masarif, Zakat और मसला तमलीक, तहकीक व تسہیل اضلاع الشقوق. Okay, تصیف حضرت مولانا رحمۃ اللہ کروانوی رحمۃ اللہ علیہ, اس کے 4 volumes. So there are 4 volumes of this book what he has worked on. With a great privilege, I invite Mufti Ateeq Ahmed Bastawi to share his views on utilizing the power of zakat for economic empowerment and self-sustainability of the Muslims and nation building. Assalamu alaikum Mufti Sahab, and over to you.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, آپ حضرات کل سے اس موضوع پر گفتگو سن رہے ہیں. تو زکوٰۃ کا موضوع ہے. زکوٰۃ ارکان اسلام میں سے رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا ارشاد ہے کہ اسلام کے 5 ارکان ہیں. ان 5 ارکان میں جہاں کلمہ ہے, شہادتین, وہی نماز ہے, وہی روزہ ہے, اسی کے ساتھ زکوٰۃ ہے. قرآن میں بے شمار مقامات پر نماز اور زکوٰۃ کا ساتھ ذکر کیا ہے. اور یہ عبادت ہے, مالی عبادت ہے. نماز مدنی عبادت ہے, زکوٰۃ مالی عبادت ہے. اس کی اصل حیثیت ہے عبادت کی ہے, لیکن اس میں معاشی پہلو بھی شامل ہے, اس لیے کہ زکوٰۃ کے ذریعے سے بہت سے ضرورت مندوں کی ضرورتیں پوری ہوتی ہیں. تو اسلام کا جو اقتصادی نظام ہے اس کے ایک اہم حصہ زکوٰۃ ہے, جس کے بارے میں قرآن کریم میں حدیث نبویہ میں اللہ کے دربار میں اللہ کے حضور علیہ السلام نماز کا پیش کرتے ہیں. ایک بنیادی چیز تو یہ ہے کہ زکوٰۃ میں عبادت کا پہلو زیادہ حاوی اور غالب ہے, اور زکوٰۃ کے مسائل میں اس کا لحاظ کیا جاتا ہے. اگرچہ ایک معاشی حصہ بھی ہمارے مذہب کا ہے, تو بہت بڑا معاشی حصہ ہے, اس سے بہت سے مسائل وابستہ ہیں, لیکن عبادت کا پہلو اس کو نکالنے میں, اس کو ادا کرنے میں, اس کا نظام قائم کرنے میں سب پہ غالب رہتا ہے. تو ان تمام چیزوں کی رعایت کرتے ہوئے ہمیں زکوٰۃ کے سسٹم کو قائم کرنا ہے, اس نظام کو قائم کرنا ہے. ایک بات میں اور عرض کرتا ہوں کہ بعض دفعہ ہمارے ذہن میں بات آتی ہے, جب بھی مسلم سماج کو معاشی طور پر مستحکم کرنے کی ہم بات کرتے ہیں کہ مسلمان سماج اپنے پیروں پہ کھڑا ہو, اس میں غریب لوگ کم سے کم ہوں. غریب تو ہوں گے کچھ نہ کچھ, لیکن ان کی تعداد کم ہو, یا اگر غربت بھی اس درجے کی نہ ہو جو انسان کو بہت غلط کام بھی کرواتی ہے. تو اس وقت ہمارے ذہن میں صرف زکوٰۃ کا نظام آتا ہے. ہمیں اسلام کا جو سسٹم ہے, اقتصادی نظام, اس کو مسائل کے ساتھ پڑھنے کی ضرورت ہے. بات یہ ہے کہ اور بہت کام جو اسلام میں بس ثواب والے کام ہیں اور بہت ہی ان کی اہمیت ہے, ان چیزوں کو ہم نے بالکل ہی نظر انداز کر دیا یا کمزور کر دیا. سب سے اہم چیز ایک وقت کا نظام جو ہے, کہ مال کو وقف کرنا اللہ کے راستے میں, مختلف اچھے کاموں کے لیے, تعمیری کاموں کے لیے, فلاحی کاموں کے لیے. یہ تو بہت بڑی مت تھی جو رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے عہد سے شروع ہوئی, اور دور میں مسلمانوں نے اپنی جائیدادیں, اپنے املاک بہت سے اس طرح کے کاموں کے لیے, جس سے مسلم سماج مضبوط ہو اور آگے بڑھے, زیادہ سے وقت کیے. اور ہندوستان میں آپ دیکھیں گے اور اس ملک کے اندر بھی بے شمار اوقاف ہیں. ایک تو اوقاف کے نظام کو درست کرنے کی ضرورت ہے. اگر اس کو ہم درست کر لیں تو ہمارے بہت سے مسائل حل ہوں گے, اور جو معاشی کمزوری اور معاشی طور پر پسماندگی کی بات بار بار آتی ہے, اس کا مداوع ہم کر سکتے ہیں, چاہے تعلیم کے میدان میں اس کا استعمال کرنے کی بات ہو, یا صحت کے میدان میں استعمال کرنے کی بات ہو, یا اور ترقیاتی کاموں کے لیے. لیکن اب جو اوقاف ہیں, انہیں اوقاف ہی کا تحفظ ہو سکے تو بہت بڑا کام ہے. لیکن وقت کرتے رہنا, مسلمانوں میں یہ جذبہ ہونا چاہیے کہ مختلف قسم کے اعمال خیر کے لیے, نیک کاموں کے لیے املاک کو, جائیدادوں کو وقف کرتے ہیں, اس کا نظام بناتے ہیں, سسٹم قائم کریں یہ خصوصیت تھی مسلمانوں کے ہر دور میں، اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس دور میں اس میں بہت کمی آ گئی. دوسری قومیں اس میں آگے بڑھ گئی ہیں. اگر ہم مختلف اقوام کے یہاں جائزہ لیں کہ کس حد تک وہ اپنے قومی کاموں کے لیے، ملی مفاد کے لیے کتنی بڑی جائیدادیں، کتنی بڑی املاک مختص کرتی ہیں، اور تعلیم کے لیے اور صحت کے لیے. تو ہم نے کافی پیچھے میں ہو گئے ہیں. اوقاف کا نظام ہے، اس کی طرف توجہ کرنے کی ضرورت ہے. اور باقی صدقات نافلہ اللہ کے راستے میں خرچ کرنا، اس کی ایک مد زکات ہی نہیں ہے. زکات تو ایک لمیٹڈ ہے، محدود مال ہوتا ہے. لیکن اللہ نے جو حکم دیا ہے، جو ترغیب دی ہے، انفاق فی سبیل اللہ، جہاں بھی کسی کار خیر میں ضرورت پیش آئے، ایسا مصرف آپ کے سامنے آئے کہ بھئی یہاں واقعی خرچ کرنا یہ بہت بڑی ثواب کی چیز ہوگی، تو یہ نہیں کہ ہم زکات کی رقم سے وہ کام کریں. اللہ نے ہم کو دے رکھا ہے تو زکات کے علاوہ اور بھی رقمیں گویا اس میں ہم لگائے ہیں، اور مسلمانوں کو مستحکم کرنے اور معاشی طور پہ مضبوط کرنے میں ان رقموں کا استعمال بھی ہم کریں. یہ بہت ہی اچھی بات ہوگی اور اس سے اچھے نتائج سامنے آئیں. بہرحال اس میں کوئی شبہ نہیں کہ زکات ایک ایسا فریضہ ہے کہ اگر اس فریضے کی ادائیگی ہم صحیح طور پر کیا کریں، جو زکات کا سسٹم ہے، نظام ہے، کتنے مال میں کتنی زکات ہوتی ہے، ہمارے مال والے لوگ جن کو اللہ نے مال دے رکھا ہے وہ اپنا صحیح حساب کر کے زکات کو نکالیں، اور نکالنے کے ساتھ اس کی بھی فکر کریں کہ وہ زکات ان جگہوں میں خرچ ہو، وہاں تک پہنچے جہاں خرچ کرنے کا. ایسا نہیں کہ ہم وہ حساب کر کے وہ مال نکال کے ہم فارغ ہو گئے، ہماری ذمہ داری، بلکہ یہ بھی ہماری ذمہ داری ہے کہ ہم ان جگہوں تک پہنچانے کی کوشش کریں، ان افراد تک، ان مدوں تک جن مدوں میں زکات کو خرچ کرنے کی تعلیم دی گئی. قرآن کریم میں خود کوئی ایک آیت ہے جس میں زکات کے مصارف کو بیان کیا گیا ہے، واضح کیا گیا ہے. تو اس کی تفسیر میں بہت تفصیل ہے، اور ہمارے فقہاء نے، مفسرین نے کافی اس پر خما فرسائی کی ہے. فقراء سے کیا مراد ہے، مساکین سے کیا مراد ہے، غارمین کون ہے، کیا ہے، فی سبیل اللہ کیا ہے. جو 8 مصارف ہیں، ان مصارف کی تفصیل پہ پوری کتابیں ہیں. تو ان سب پر نظر رکھتے ہوئے اسی مصارف کے دائرے میں ہم کو زکات کو خرچ. کبھی کبھی اس طرح کی بات کہی جاتی ہے کہ بھائی کوئی لمٹ نہیں ہے، اور خاص طور سے فی سبیل اللہ کا جو مصرف ہے اس کو اتنا عام کرنے کی کوشش کی جاتی ہے، اور جس کا حاصل ہے کہ ہر نیک کام سے ہر نیک کام اس میں آ گئے. یہ بات صحیح نہیں ہے. فی سبیل اللہ خاص حکم ہے، عام طور سے مجاہدین اور جہاد کے تعلق سے اس کا مسئلہ مقرر کیا گیا ہے. بعض حالات میں حاجیوں کو بھی اس میں شامل کیا، لیکن یہ عموم کی ہر کار خیر اس میں آ گیا ہے کہ کسی لحاظ سے درست نہیں ہے. تو زکات خرچ کرنے کا سسٹم جو بھی ہو، اس میں ہم کو یہ دیکھنا پڑے گا کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے جو مصارف متعین کیے ہیں اسی مصارف کے دائرے میں زکات کے مال کو خرچ کرنا چاہتا ہوں کہ صحیح لحاظ سے اور صحیح لحاظ سے اس کی گنجائش ضرور ہے کہ اگر ہم زکات کو اس انداز سے نکالیں اور خرچ کریں کہ ہمارے جو غریب بھائی ہیں، مسلمان بھائی فقراء ہیں، تاجرین ہیں، ان کی محض پوری ضرورت نہ پوری ہو بلکہ ساتھ ساتھ وہ اپنی کمائی کر سکیں. مان لیجیے ایک آدمی کوئی پیشہ جانتا ہے، کوئی ہنر جانتا ہے، لیکن اس کے پاس اس کے آلات نہیں ہے، سامان نہیں. اگر ہم نے زکات کے مال سے اس کے لیے سامان و آلات مہیا کر دیے اور اس کو سمجھائیں کہ بھائی اللہ نے آپ کو ہنر دیا ہے، اس میں آپ لگیے، محنت کیجیے، آپ خود اس لائق بنیں گے کہ آپ لوگوں کو زکات دیں. آج کی مجبوری کی اس میں آپ کی جا رہی ہے، لیکن آپ اس نیت کے ساتھ یہ کام کیجیے کہ آپ کو اللہ تعالیٰ خود غنی بنائے اور آپ دوسرے لوگ کو زکات پر خرچ کریں. تو اس طرح کے اور بھی حالات ہو سکتے ہیں. صحیح تفصیلات جو ہیں، جو اختلافات کے فقہاء کے ہیں کہ زکات کی رقم کتنی دی جا سکتی ہے، کتنی نہیں دی جا سکتی ہے، اس میں کئی موقف ہیں، کئی آراء ہیں. بعض میں کافی توسع ہے، بعض میں اس کے لحاظ سے بہت محدود دائرے میں ادائیگی زکات دینے کا اختیار ہے، لیکن بہرحال جو حالات میں جس کو لاجے ہمارے علماء نے سمجھا ہے تو یہی ہے کہ اگر ایسے حالات میں کہیں مسلمان یا ان کے لیے رہنے کا مکان نہیں ہے، جھوپڑیاں ہیں جو جاتی ہیں اور کے پاس اس کا نظم نہیں ہے، اگر ہم چھوٹے چھوٹے مکان اس کی ضرورت کے وقت بنا کر ان کے حوالے کر دیں گے تو اس حوالے کو یہ بھی کیا جا سکتا ہے، شادی کرنی پڑے گی اور مسائل کو سمجھنا پڑے گا کس حد تک کیا جا سکتا ہے۔ تو لیکن یہ بات ذہن میں ضرور رہنی چاہیے کہ جو غریب مصرف ہیں زکات کے وہ فقراء ہیں، وہ لوگ جو اپنی بنیادی ضروریات پوری نہیں کر پا رہے ہیں اپنے فقراء کی بنیاد پر اور اپنے ناطاقتی کی بنیاد پر، ان کے پاس مال نہیں ہے، یا بہت سے معذور بھی ہوتے ہیں کہ کام بھی نہیں کر سکتے ہیں، معذور ہیں، بوڑھے ہیں، غریب ہیں، تو سب سے زیادہ مستحق تو وہ لوگ ہیں جو گویا نان شبینہ کے محتاج ہیں، ان کو کے پاس کھانے پینے کو کچھ نہیں ہے اور غربت اس حد تک پہنچ گئی ہے ان کی کہ ہمارے ایسے مسلمان بھائیوں کو دوسری قومیں، دوسری جو تنظیمیں ہیں دوسرے اقوام کی، وہ اپنا دقہ بناتی ہیں کہ قریب لاتی ہیں، سرکاری کرتی ہیں، ان کے لیے سہولت فراہم کرتی ہیں، نعوذ باللہ سب تبدیل کرواتی ہیں، عیسائی وقت مرا دیتی ہیں، ہندو مرا دیتی ہیں، تو اس سے واقعات کثرت سے ہو رہے ہیں۔ تو ہمیں اس بات کو دیکھنا پڑے گا کہ جہاں محبت جہانت کے ساتھ جمع ہے تو ضرورت اس درجے کی ہے کہ ضروریات زندگی کی محتاجی کی بنیاد پر مسلمان خدا نخواستہ کسی اور طرف جا رہے ہیں، جہانت کی وجہ سے کی وجہ سے احتیاط کی بنیاد پر ان کو اقلیتیں ہم ان تک ہم ان کے لوگ کو گنجائش کہاں تک ہے کہ زکات کے مال سے گویا چھوٹے چھوٹے مکان بنا کے دے دیا آپ نے، کوئی کارخانہ بنا کے دے دیا، کوئی دکان بنا کے دے دی، اور اس کے نگرانی بھی آپ کریں کہ ان چیزوں کو کریں کہ اس سے خود مضبوط بنے اور مستحکم ہو، یہ تو سب گنجائش شان ہے، لیکن میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ جو عبورین جو مصرف زکات کا ہے وہ پریشان حال لوگ اور معذور لوگ جو نان سمینا کے محتاج ہیں اور دنیا کے بہت سے ملکوں میں صورت حال۔ میں ایک بار امریکہ گیا، ایک بڑی تنظیم کے آفس میں جانا ہو، وہاں نوجوانوں نے اس سے سوال کیا کہ بھئی یہاں ایک مسئلہ چل رہا ہے کہ زکات کو مال کو انویسٹ کر کے ہم کوئی کارخانے قائم کریں، کوئی بڑا کاروبار فیکٹری، اور اس کی آمدنی جو حاصل ہو، نفع حاصل ہو، اس کو غریبوں میں محتاجوں میں بانٹے، تو کیا شرم گنجائش ہے کہ نہیں؟ تو میں نے ان سے کہا کہ دیکھیے بھائی، یہ جو مسئلہ آپ نے پوچھا ہے، اس مسئلے کے جواب دینے سے پہلے میں آپ سے جاننا چاہتا ہوں کہ بھائی امریکہ میں آپ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں اور دنیا کے مختلف ممالک میں مسلمانوں کی جو صورتحال ہے، جو فقراء کی صورتحال ہے، افریقہ کے بہت سے ملکوں میں، ایشیا کے بہت سے ملکوں میں، اور لاکھ کروڑوں ایسے لوگ ہیں جو زمینہ کا محتاج ہیں، تو ان حالات میں کیا قبولیت ذمہ داری ہماری نہیں ہوتی ہے؟ ہمارے امریکہ میں غریب اس طرح کے نہیں ہے، ان کا احتیاج اس درجے کا نہیں ہے، تو دنیا کے دوسرے علاقوں میں جو مسلمان ہیں جو فقر سے پریشان ہیں، ظاہریت کے گود میں جا رہے ہیں غریبی محتاجی کی بنیاد پر، اس کے لیے جہاں تک آپ کے سوال کے تعلق ہے تو اس میں میری بات یہ ہے کہ یہی ہے کہ زکات کے مال کو اگر آپ اس کا استعمال کریں گے، مان لیجیے ایک بڑا کارخانہ آپ قائم کریں، ایک بڑی انڈسٹری ایک فیکٹری قائم کریں، تو ہوتا یہ ہے کہ اس طرح کی فیکٹریاں انڈسٹریاں یہ سب اس میں اندیشہ اچھا اس کا بھی ہوتا ہے کہ بیٹھ جائے، اب اس مرحلے میں آپ کام کر رہے ہیں لیکن وہ فیل ہو گئی، مالی وقت کروڑوں روپیہ زکات کا جو اصل فقراء کا حق تھا آپ کی اسلامی کے نظر ہو گیا، ایسے کسی کام میں لگانا جہاں خطرہ ہو، اس کے ڈوبنے کا بھی اندیشہ ہو، یہ درست نہیں ہے۔ ہاں چھوٹے موٹے کاموں کے لیے آپ کچھ اگر چیزیں کرتے ہیں اس طرح سے ایک چھوٹی دکان بنا کے آپ نے دے دی, مکان نہیں ہے مکان بنا کے دے دیا, اور بھی کسی کے پاس اپنے فن کے آلات نہیں ہے ان کو خرید کر کے آپ نے دے دیا, تو پھر بنا دیا کہ اپنا میں جذبہ کمائیں گے, تو اس طرح کی چیزیں ہو سکتی ہیں. لیکن کوئی اس طرح کا بڑا کام اس میں گویا زکوٰۃ کی کافی لمبی رقم کے ڈوبنے کا اندیشہ ہو, کون اس کا ذمہ دار ہوگا؟ زکوٰۃ دینے والوں نے زکوٰۃ دے دی, آپ کے حوالے کر دی, آپ ایسے کاموں میں اس کو لگائیں گے, اگر وہ ڈوب جاتا ہے تو کیا اس کی بھرپائی آپ کریں گے؟ تو سسٹم آپ کے یہاں ایسا ہوگا کہ اس کی بھرپائی ہو, اس کا نقصان تھا تو سلطان کے یہاں بات کی آ رہی ہے, کیونکہ اس میں یہ اندیشہ تو پایا جاتا ہے. تو اگر اس طرح کے کاموں میں ہم اس کا استعمال کرنا چاہیں تو اس میں گویا اس بات کا ہونا چاہیے, اس کی جانی ہونی چاہیے کہ اور ہم ڈوب جائے گی, خدا نہ خاصا ہو کروڑوں کا سرمایہ ختم ہو جائے گا. اور ایک دوسری بات میں اور بھی عرض کروں گی, میں بہت سے ملکوں میں جانا ہوتا ہے, ہوتی ہے
مفتی صاحب ماشاء اللہ ابھی آواز اچھی آ رہی تھی, پھر تھوڑا کم ہو گئی ہے.
اچھا کم ہو گئی ہے جی, تو اب آواز آ رہی ہے؟
اب بہت زبردست آ رہی ہے. جی
ہلو,
جی جی اب آ رہی ہے مفتی.
اب آ رہی ہے
جی جی ماشاء اللہ.
جی جی. تو ہم نے دیکھا ہے یورپ کے کئی ملکوں میں, امریکہ میں بھی, یہ بات تنظیمیں جو اس مقصد کے لیے قائم ہوتی, جو ان کی تفصیلات ہم نے معلوم کی تو معلوم ہوا کہ قریب آدھی رقم تو یہ جمع ہوتی ہے اس اجتماعی نظام کے لیے زکوٰۃ کے, آدھی رقم تقریباً خرچ ہو جاتی ہے وہاں کے جو آفیسرز ہیں, ان کے انتظامات ہیں, تنخواہیں ہیں. تو یہ شکل تو سرے سے درست نہیں ہوگی. اگر ہمیں اجتماعی نظم قائم کرنا ہے تو اس کے لیے یا تو ہم کوئی اور ذریعہ پیدا کر کے تنخواہوں کا, چیزوں کا نظم کریں, یا اگر اسی میں سے ہمیں خرچ کرنا ہے تو انتہائی احتیاط کے ساتھ ہم کوشش کریں کہ بھائی 8واں حصہ بہت سے بہت, اور نے تفصیلات کی ہے کہاں تک اس میں ہو سکتا ہے, لیکن یہ شکل جو بنتی جا رہی ہے کہ بھائی چونکہ ایک اجتماعیت تو ہے نہیں, ایک تنظیم قائم ہوئی, دوسری قائم ہو گئی, تیسری قائم ہو گئی, ہر ایک اپنا آفس بنا رہی ہے, اس زمانے کے لحاظ سہولتیں, پھر تنخواہیں اچھی سے اچھی چاہیے. تو نتیجہ یہ ہو رہا ہے کہ گویا جو رقم زکوٰۃ کے نام پہ جمع ہو رہی ہے, دے رہے ہیں جذبے کے ساتھ, اس کا بڑا حصہ اخراجات میں صرف ہو رہا ہے. تو اس سے بچنے کی بہت ضرورت ہے. اس سے ہم کیسے بچیں؟ ٹھیک ہے, اجتماعی نظم بہتر ہے, اور بات یہ ہے کہ اللہ کرے گی اگر وہ سسٹم ہمارے پاس ہے اجتماعیت کا, اسلامی حکومت کا, اور ہم اس زکوٰۃ کے سسٹم کو بھی اجتماعی کرنے میں کامیاب ہوتے, تو اس سے بہت بڑا فائدہ یہ ہوتا کہ بھائی جو واقعی مستحق ہیں, جن کو ضرورت ہے, ان تک وہ چیزیں پہنچتی. جو ایسے کمزور ہیں کہ تھوڑا سہارا دینے سے وہ آگے بڑھ سکتے ہیں, ان کو سہارا دیتے. ابھی تو گویا ایک ایسی صورتحال ہے افراتفری کی کہ ہم کوشش کرتے ہیں تب بھی ایک ہی شہر میں, ایک ہی علاقے میں 2 تنظیمیں, 4 تنظیمیں, 4 ادارے, اور اس میں آپس میں دوڑ چلتی ہے. تو اس لیے اس میں اس پہلو کا لحاظ ضروری ہے کہ بھائی وہ تنظیم کے نام پر اور مینٹیننس کے نام پر اور اخراجات کے نام پر زکوٰۃ کی بڑی رقمی چیزوں میں صرف نہ ہو. بہرحال میری گفتگو کا حاصل یہ ہے کہ زکوٰۃ ایک عبادت ہے, اہم ترین عبادت ہے, مالی عبادت. اس لیے اس کے مسائل میں جو حکام ہیں, جو کتاب و سنت سے ثابت ہیں, ان کی پابندی ضروری ہے. ایسا نہیں کہ ہمارے طرف جو چیز بھی آ جائے, کوئی تجویز آ گئی اور اس کو ہم علماء کے سامنے پیش کیے بغیر, اس پہ بحث کیے بغیر ہم نے اس کو شروع کر دیا, تو یہ سرے سے غلط ہوگا. اور اصل جو مقصد ہے زکوٰۃ کے نکالنے کا مالداروں کے تعلق سے, وہ اپنے مال کا تزکیہ ہے, اپنی جان کا تزکیہ ہے. نبی ان کے مالوں میں سے آپ صدقہ دیجیے, یعنی زکوٰۃ دیجیے, ان کو آپ ان کا تزکیہ کیجیے, ان کے دلوں کو بخل سے اور اس طرح کی جو بیماریاں ہوتی ہیں اس سے آپ پاک کیجیے, اور ان کا تزکیہ کیجیے, ان کے مال کو پاک کیجیے, ان کے لیے دعا کیجیے. تو زکوٰۃ دینے والوں کو اصل جو نیت کرنی چاہیے زکوٰۃ دینے میں کہ ہم یہ زکوٰۃ جو دے رہے ہیں یہ کسی پہ احسان نہیں کر رہے ہیں. اگر ہوتا یہ ہے کہ زکوٰۃ نکالنے والے کو جو زکوٰۃ نکالنے ہونا چاہیے وہ گویا غریبوں پر احسان کی بات کرتے ہیں. حالانکہ ہدایت تو یہ ہے کہ جہاں تک ہو سکے آپ اس طرح سے آپ محتاجوں کو ضرورت مندوں کو مال دیجیے کہ اگر آپ نے دانے ہاتھ میں دیا بائیں ہاتھ کو معلوم رکھ چھپا کے دیجیے بند کر کے اور بہت سے لوگوں کو تشہیر کر کے نہیں معلوم ہے آپ کو فلان میں ضرورت مند ہے. بہت سے ضرورت مند ہوتے ہیں جو زبان بھی نہیں کھولتے کہ اشارے میں بھی آپ سے بات نہیں کہیں گے لیکن وہ زیادہ مستحق ہیں اس کی ان تک زکوٰۃ کی رقمیں یا جو بھی رقم اللہ کے راستے میں خرچ کریں صدقات نافلہ ان چیزوں کو آپ خرچ کریں. تو زکوٰۃ نکالنے والے اپنی نیت کو درست کریں کہ اپنی تطہیر اپنے دل کی اپنے مال کی اور اللہ سے قبولیت کی امید کہ اللہ تعالیٰ ہماری اس عبادت کو قبول کر لے. یہ امید میں اگر ہوگا تو اہتمام کے ساتھ پورا حساب کر کے وہ زکوٰۃ نکالیں گے. اور میں سمجھتا ہوں اگر پورے مسلمان جو صاحب جن پہ زکوٰۃ لازم ہے اگر وہ سب زکوٰۃ نکالیں اور اس کو صحیح جگہ خرچ کر سکیں ایسے ویسے نہیں کہیں بھی پھینک دیا بلکہ اس کے بارے میں بھی حساس ہوں کہ وہ زکوٰۃ صحیح جگہ پہ جانی چاہیے. تو ہمارے جو بدحالی ہے واقع مسلمانوں کا ہے وہ بڑی حد تک انشاءاللہ ختم ہوگا یا کم ہوتا چلا جائے گا. اس طرح خاص توجہ کی ضرورت ہے. اور اسلام نے جو معاشی نظام دیا ہے اس کو آپ اس طرح دیکھ سکتے ہیں قرآن کریم کی آیتوں کی روشنی میں کہ دنیا میں ایک تو سودی نظام ہے ربا کا نظام اور ایک صدقات کا نظام. ربا کے نظام میں بنیادی چیز کیا ہوتی ہے کہ جو مالدار طبقہ ہے اس مالدار طبقے کو چسکا ہوتا ہے غریبوں کا خون چوسنے کا. غریب آدمی ہم سے پیسہ دے گا مجبور ہے وہ قرض دے گا اس قرض پہ ہم سود لیں گے 10 روپیہ دے کر کے ہم 15 دیں گے 12 دیں گے. تو وہ استحصالی نظام ہے جس میں انسانوں کی مجبوری و غربت کا سے غلط فائدہ اٹھایا جا رہا ہے. اس کے مقابلے میں اسلام جو نظام قائم کیا ہے وہ صدقات کا نظام. جو مال والے ہیں جو اللہ نے مال سے نوازا ہے بجائے اس کے کہ وہ یہ سوچے کہ ہم غریبوں کا خون چوسیں ان کے پاس جو کچھ مال بچا ہے وہ بھی ہم کثیر لیں. ان کو فکر یہ ہونی چاہیے کہ بھائی جو ضرورت مند معاشرے میں ہیں جو غریب ہیں محتاج ہیں ان کی ہم مدد کریں زکوٰۃ نکالیں صدقہ نکالیں نظام ہے جو اسلام نے پیش کیا ہے. اور قرآن کریم نے جو بات فرمائی ہے دونوں نظاموں کے بارے میں بہت جامع جملہ ہے. یمحق اللہ الربا ویربی الصدقات. اللہ تعالیٰ صدقات کے سسٹم کو بڑھاتا ہے. اگر صدقات کے نظام قائم ہو زکوٰۃ کا نظام قائم ہو اللہ کے راستے میں خرچ کرنے کے سسٹم پر عمل کر رہے ہوں تو بظاہر اگر مال گھٹے گا بھی تب بھی وہ مال بڑھے گا اپنے نتائج کے اعتبار سے اپنے ثمرات کے اعتبار سے. اور ربا میں اگر آپ نظر آتا ہے کہ ہمارا مال بڑھ رہا ہے لیکن وہ مال نتیجے کے اعتبار سے گھٹ رہا ہے اسے کوئی جسے چاند کو یا سورج کو یا گہن لگ جاتا ہے کہ وہ سورج ہے لیکن اس کی روشنی نہیں آ رہی کہیں اس کی روشنی پہنچ نہیں رہی ہے. ایسی مال بہت بڑھنے کے باوجود بھی ایسا غیر مفید بن جاتا ہے بلکہ یہ سہانے روح بن جاتا ہے اصلاح کا ذریعہ ہو جاتا ہے. تو مشکل یہی ہے کہ ہم لوگ سورج سسٹم میں ایسے ربا کے سسٹم کے کچھ عادی ہوتے گئے ذہن ہمارا اس طرح بنتا گیا کہ ہمارے یہاں جو اللہ نے راستے دیے ہیں اور جو احکامات دیے ہیں وہاں دوسروں غریبوں کے کام آنے کے لیے اس کو ہم نے گویا چھوڑ دیا ہے یا اس سے دور ہو گئے ہیں. بہرحال یہ اچھی بات ہے کہ ہمارے بہت سے حضرات جنہوں نے پروگرام منظم کیا ہے یہ زکوٰۃ کے مختلف پہلوؤں پر اور اس کے لیے حضرات کو دعوت دی ہے اور اس میں تبادلہ خیر کی راہیں کھل رہی ہیں. اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ مختلف ملکوں میں اس کے تجربات بھی ہو رہے ہیں وہ بھی آپ کا موضوع ہے کسی روز وہ بھی آئے گا کہ مختلف ملکوں میں زکوٰۃ کے ذریعے سے جو معاشی استحکام کی جو کوششیں ہو رہی ہیں اور بہت سی شکلیں اس میں عمل میں آ رہی ہیں وہ بھی آپ کے سامنے آئیں گی. لیکن جانکاری کے ساتھ پہلی بات زکوٰۃ ہر مسلمان جس پہ زکات نکالے حساب کے پوری زکات، اور جس پہ زکات فرض نہیں ہے وہ بھی صدقہ نافلہ ہی نکالے، اللہ کے راستے میں کچھ نہ کچھ نکالے، خرچ کرے. یہ زندگی اللہ نے ہم کو موقع دیا ہے کہ ہم جتنے نیکیاں کر لیں، پھر بعد میں افسوس ہوگا، بعد کے بعد سوچیں گے کاش کہ تھوڑا سا موقع مل جاتا، ہم یہ کر لیتے، ہم وہ کر لیتے. جب کرنے کا موقع ہے تو ہم کوتاہی کر رہے ہیں. جی زکات لازم نہ بھی ہو تب بھی کچھ نہ کچھ اللہ کے راستے میں خرچ کرنا نیکی کے کام میں ہماری ذمہ داری ہے. اور اس کے ساتھ ساتھ زکات نکالنے والوں کو اس کا بھی ہونا چاہیے کہ زکات صحیح جگہ پہنچائے، صحیح جگہ پہنچیں، اور زکات دے کر کے آپ احسان نہ جتلائیں بلکہ آپ احسان مانیں. اللہ
جزاک
تعالیٰ
اللہ.
ان بندوں کو منظور ہوں جنہوں نے آپ سے زکات قبول کی ہے، تو اگر احترام کے ساتھ آپ اللہ کے راستے میں زکات نکالیں گے اس کی برکتیں انشاءاللہ اپنے مال میں، اپنی زندگی میں آپ محسوس کریں گے. تو
جزاک اللہ مفتی صاحب، معافی چاہتا ہوں آپ کو روک رہا ہوں بیچ میں.
ہاں
ایک دو منٹ بچے ہیں، ہمارے اگلے اسپیکر ویٹ کر رہے ہیں. تو ایک سوال پوچھتا ہوں جی، ایک سوال پوچھ رہا ہوں کہ یہ عرفان ملا صاحب نے یہاں پہ سوال کیا ہے کہ اکثر یہ کہا جاتا ہے کہ زکوٰۃ جو ہے سید لوگوں کو نہیں دینی چاہیے. تو اس کے بارے میں اگر آپ ایک دو منٹ میں اگر اس کا جواب ہم کو بتا دیں تو خوشی ہوگی.
اصل میں عام موقف تو فقہا کا یہی ہے، حدیث شریف موجود ہے، حدیث کی بنیاد پر یہ موقف ہے، لیکن سید لوگوں کو زکوٰۃ نہ دی جائے، لیکن ان کے لیے کچھ اور تھا جو حق نہیں دے رہے ہیں، جو ان کے لیے اللہ کے رسول سے قربت کی بنیاد پر، رشتہ داری کی بنیاد پر جو ان کا حصہ تھا، خمس کا تھا، خمس میں سے تھا، وہ چیزیں اب ان کو نہیں مل رہی ہیں. تو اگر ہم ان کے احترام و عزت کی بنیاد پر آج بھی ان کو ہدیہ دیں، تحفہ دیں کہ ان کا فقر و احتیاج دور ہو جائے تو اچھی بات ہے. لیکن کیونکہ ہم بے حس ہو چکے ہیں، ہم میں وہ غیرت نہیں ہے، وہ احساس نہیں ہے، تو ان کے جو محتاج اور ضرورت مند لوگ ہیں ان کو کسی اور مت سے ہم کر دیں، یہ بھی نہیں ہو پا رہا. جو جہاں اس طرح کی صورتحال ہے وہاں ہمارے کئی علماء نے اور بعض قدیم فقہا نے بھی اجازت دی ہے کہ بھئی ان کو زکوٰۃ کی رقم دی جا سکتی ہے اور لے سکتے ہیں اگر ان کا فقر و احتیاج اتنا بڑا ہوا ہے اور اس کا تحمل نہیں کر پا رہے ہیں وہ. اور یہ بھی ہے کہ بھئی خود ایک رائے یہ بھی ہے اور بات حضرات کا کہ سادات کو دے سکتے ہیں، دینے والا بھی سادات میں ہے اور دینے والا بھی سادات میں ہے. تو بہتر تو یہ ہے کہ بھئی کسی اور مت سے دیں، زکوٰۃ میں سے نہ دیں، ہدیہ دیں، تحفہ دیں، تو صدقہ نافلہ دیں. لیکن اگر ایسی حالت ہے، کمزوری ایسی ہے اور کوئی دینے والا نہیں ہے کسی اور مت سے، تو اس حالت میں ظاہر ہے کہ ان کے لیے کوئی راستہ نہیں ہے. گنجائش کے اقوال موجود ہے، ان کو اختیار کیا جا سکتا ہے. ہمارے مولانا قاضی مجاہد صاحب نے پورا مضمون لکھا تھا، دلائل جمع کیے تھے، ایک موقع اس طرح کا. جی
ماشاء اللہ، جزاک اللہ خیر مفتی صاحب. ہمارے اگلے اسپیکر انتظار کر رہے ہیں تو اس وجہ سے شاید زیادہ یہ نہیں ہو سکے گا.
ہم کو آگے بڑھائیے. جزاک اللہ حضرات.
آپ سے ادباً گزارش ہے کہ ایک منٹ اگر کچھ اگر آپ دعا کر دیں آپ ہم سب کے لیے تو I think there is some technical hiccup there. So Jazakallah Mufti Sahab, and mashallah they were very insightful talk by Mufti Ateeq Ahmed Bastawi Sahab. He was insisting on the points like for all my people who couldn't understand here much of his Urdu language. So let me help you. I have made down a couple of points here what sir has said. Number one is don't try to provide bread through zakat. It should be what we should feed them for skills or some business or something so that they get a continuous source of income in the future. Do not invest the zakat amount if somewhere you're doing a collective zakat. Do not invest in any place where there is amount of risk involved. And please do not use the collective zakat for office setup and other expenses like what AMP is doing, IndiaZakat.com is doing. They're not using even a single penny for any office expenses to meet out. So Jazakumullah khair, Mufti Sahab. Now we'll move on and we'll call up our next speaker for the day. And for that, I would read out his profile. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker and invite him for this talk, Dr. Atef Elsabrawy. Dr. Atef is
you want to change the slide to the right speaker, please. Yeah.
Is an global innovation, SDG and Islamic finance leader with more than 30 years of experience in shaping and managing of entrepreneurship and economic inclusion ecosystem. Dr. Atef is currently economic advisor at the World Bank to Egyptian government, MSME expert UNDP RAF, and senior consultant to KSA Mansahat. Before he served as SDGs and Islamic finance expert at UNDP in Bahrain, CEO of Family Bank Bahrain, social development advisor to Bahrain government, SME and BBIC manager at Bahrain Development Bank, director at Egyptian Social Fund for Development, SFD, advisor to Centennial Fund in KSA, senior associated at the Al Mahali Islamic Finance Consultancy and Training UAE, national team leader of Bahrain's SDG reporting system. And he is also the founder of socialinnovationexpert.com, a creator of social innovation and design thinking lab. So this is a very big introduction if you have to read for Doctor, but we'll cut short it. And we would like to listen from him as to what his insightful views on about utilizing the power of Zakat for economic empowerment and self-sustainability of Muslim and nation building. So over to you, Doctor.
Thanks a lot, Zamir. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm really very honored and extremely excited to be in the Zakat talks for the second year or perhaps the third year, which is really became part of the very interesting. I mean, this is one of the very interesting events I participate all the year in a lot of events, but this event is extremely important for my heart and my soul and my spirit, as we are all trying to look for how can we enrich our Muslim Ummah and how can we get out of the situation where we are, and particularly the Islamic economy and the Islamic finance is part of the system because economy is the whole. So I would really, I'm appreciating my previous speakers' talk, and I will be very technical more than our Mufti, just mentioning that I will be going through different dimension of why we have to use Zakat for economic empowerment. In fact, we are now living in a changing world. That changing world is also forcing us to change the tools and mechanisms and platforms. And as we all know that Zakat is really a platform for the faith and for the responsibility of people towards the needy and the poorer and who are in depression. So I will be going quickly to go for the challenges. My presentation, my talk will be very technical regarding how we can use modern tools, modern aspects of the economic inclusion and economic empowerment to implement programs for Muslim communities who are using the money. I'm joining the previous speaker, Mufti Ateeq, in terms of how we use the money. In fact, we are all questionable for the amount of money we spend either in Zakat and Sadaqah and any spending in our life. So particularly if Zakat is a due, is really a must for us, is an obligation. So how can we use it smartly? I will focus in the term of smart and impactful. So I'll go to understand some issues regarding the economic inclusion sphere and ecosystem, and I will end by some example. If we talk about changing world quickly, we are living in an era where really we have increasing poverty worldwide. As we see here, we have more than 700 million people below the poverty line, about 800 million people who are in the threshold. But the new things in the life of the poverty study and theories which emerging with Zakat and with Islamic and Sharia, which is a multi-dimensional poverty. Long time we deal with the poverty like an economic issue. Now we look for, if you look for the charts on the left, we are using what we call it multi-poverty dimension. Imagine that one guy will live with $1.9 US per day. Certainly this wouldn't be sufficient for getting bread, eating, going for perhaps education for the kids, paying the rent, paying any health issues. The issue is no more only to get bread, only to eat. We have more than that in our lives. If you look, 160 million people who are now considered poor according to multi-poverty index, which is recently, we have about 85% multi-poverty index poor live in rural areas. Here, rural areas, we talk about very poor areas already. So we have the dimension of where we are, where the poor is, and we have 42% live in household with no adult has even 5 years in education. So we have an extreme poor people who are living without education. So the dimension of education comes also to add for the poverty, and ending by 81% of multi-poverty index poorer people in the world are living without sanitation or with inadequate sanitation. So the issue now is no more in the money, no more that we don't have sufficient money. More than money, we have a huge problem of inequality in the world, where we have, you see, 80% of the population earn 50% of the world total income. I mean, the whole world total income, only 8% are eating this 50%. And we have tremendous inequality. 50% of the world wealth is owned by 1% of the population. Here we are praising the zakat and praising our faith in God in getting us more equal. We try to use the zakat. I mean, people before me, our Mufti, Yousuf and our Ateeq, Mufti Ateeq, they explained well why zakat is important. Because of that kind of inequality, we are living in that. So we have two dimensions now to deal with zakat. Perhaps in the ancient time, we didn't take such much angle of inequality plus the multi-dimension of the poverty itself. So if you look to understand who are people who are receiving zakat, in fact, the economic inclusion challenges, those people, if I imagine that to empower them, we have already particular kind of challenges like access to decent job. They are not accessing to decent job because they have limited access to training. They have financial literacy very high. They have problem of access to markets. If they produce anything, they are not able to go to the market like any businesses. They have access to viable business. Every time we have very needy people, poor people starting any income generating activity, but they don't continue, they don't grow because they have no access to finance, they have no access to market, as I mentioned, and they have low self-esteem. And this, so we have a kind of a stereotype of character, of profile of people we have to deal with. So if you look for the zakah, who are receivers of the zakah, particularly our muftis mentioned deeply the category and people who are receiving. We have the poor, the needy. I wouldn't go for the 8 categories, but I'm very concerned by the first 2 categories, poor and needy, and also those who are in debt. Because if we look for the term, in fact, empowerment, we talk about economic empowerment. So we have to understand first the social change, the change of expectation of people are going beyond our need of money. And fortunately, if you go back to our Quran and our religions, we find that many relevant expression like tamkeen. In fact, empowerment is a term which goes to develop to be independent, to self-support against specific life challenges. It also protect and defend the side of the weak or prevent from exploration. So the term of empowerment is different than support, is different than help. In fact, if we look for the zakah, you always see the angle of help or getting quick action for the needy. But now we are going beyond that to go for the empowerment. So if you go for the term in empowerment in Islam or in Arabic, it is tamkeen. Tamkeen is a master of the verb makkin. It's giving the essential of the thing. So it means if you like to empower someone to makkin ahad, it means that you do something to make him successful. This is a pure expression of tamkeen. So economic empowerment is the capacity of individuals to participate, to contribute, to benefit from the growth of process in a way that recognizes the value of his contribution. He has a contribution. The last definition is very unique. I like it, that economic empowerment is the ability to make an act on decision that involves the control over the allocation of financial resources. Here we don't talk about giving a poor something. We talk about empower him to be able to take the decision. So why zakat is important for economic empowerment is so simple, because we notice that the poor community in our life, in India, in Egypt, in Bangladesh, in Africa, we have three characters for that kind of poverty in the community. The first is problem of access. Those people, those communities are not able to access, doesn't have the access to basic social services in education and health and other essentials. So the first, that we don't access the service. Those poor people are deprived from the services which are basics. The second problem of growth. It means that the community doesn't have the opportunity. I mentioned that a rural area, most poor people are a rural area. So there are no economic empowerment opportunity. There is no growth. And the third, we have problem of social injustice. It means that the community cannot develop themselves because of the marginalization and deprivation. So the distribution of productive zakat, here we talk about a new expression. It is not new for everyone. I mean, people from Malaysia and Indonesia and heard about the term productive zakat. The issue here is to shift our situation from that kind of perception of having the poor and the needy, the maskin as part of the, we give him a support. Here we are talking about the ecosystem where these people, those guy or this needy women or poor. So if you would like to understand how can we take those people out of the poverty, so we call it economic empowerment program elements. Imagine that you have a zakat authorization, a zakat committee, or let's say a body, and you would like to develop the capabilities of people. You have to put in mind that it is not only to access to money. We start by thinking those people, according to their stereotype, they are suffering from self-esteem. They are needing someone to nudge them, to give them the ability to go, to go and work. Let them start to build their confidence, which is a huge issue. This is also a sponsor of training, and this is could be paid by the zakat. And we have our Muftis here to confirm. We have access to money. We need to have any program of economic empowerment should start by self-esteem, but we should work by access to money. We have to make the availability of the money, to avail the money. Access to managerial skills, it means access to skills. It's not enough to give them the money, because if you don't train them, if you don't guide them, they might fail and they might be very mean. The issue is supporting, and money is not enough. Access to know-how. You have to tell them some technology, they are working, small farmers, you tell them how can they produce better, how can they go to the market, how can they make better products, design, branding, access to market, how do you take them out of their villages to be in relation or links with the buyers and going beyond their poor villages, poor area, and finally access to mentors. So we know well, we master now the issue of economic empowerment. Should we have now to master the issue of linking those points with the zakat? Just to keep all the our limits with Sharia compliance and our limits with what is done or not done by the zakat. I'm happy to mention also this kind of program, which is already now worldwide known. In front of us is a sample program, we call it Economic Empowerment Journey. We have in our 8 category of zakah, we have poor and needy, we have maskin and faqir and maskin. Imagine that the poorer one, the ultra poor, which is the poorest one, the poor, when we start to deal with the poor, it's very evident that we will give them some social assistance. And that might be a given in cash or an item, whatever you. So we try to fulfill their basic needs, particularly financial or sample income activity. And then we go for the second immediately, because the issue doesn't stop here. We have to go for the journey. So after we give some basic needs, we go immediately to these poorer become needy, because he has certain things. He started what we call it income generating activity. He can earn money. Once he can earn money, he can develop his skills himself. He can develop the business. So we have to go for educational, vocational education. We have to look if he's illiterate. We can teach him, learn how to manage your asset, how to make any kind of better things. So once the needy is going with certain enhancement, he's becoming an active poor. And here we start to raise our hands, raise our heads out of the extra poverty condition. And here we talk about business support. So we have a journey which starts with poorer, the needs, active poor. Once he's active poor, like we call productive family. People who are producing at home. So we start to talk about how to develop your business. Here he starts to understand what is a business, what is a technology, what is a market. He became immediately poor with high capabilities and viable business idea. So here we can inject money with all trust that he can manage, because we have a sort of financial inclusion and financial education. Become immediately poor with partner in business and follow up and scale up, and he can graduate from poverty. So we start why Zakat receiver or recipient who are going through the journey, we get out with a Zakat giver, because everyone should be a Zakat giver. We don't have to content with being a receiver. So this kind of journey, as you see, is being copied now worldwide to be one of the program of getting people out of poverty from one side, but getting the receiver of Zakat in fact, to be a giver. It is very important to focus on the value creation, because a lot of programs I participated in 2012 with the Zakat House in Kuwait in a small study about how can the Zakat finance micro enterprise in several areas in the Gulf and the North African countries. I noticed that most of activities are generating activity or extremely primitive. Look for this example, very simple. If we buy the steak here from the village and we go to the market, we take it $1 and we sell it $1.5. We have very marginal added value or profit. If we can do some of process for that steak, it becomes a juice. So the 1 kilo from $1, it might be 5 kilo. If we go for more innovation, the $1 might be $50. If you like to help people, don't stuck in helping them in a very primitive way. Otherwise, you don't make a lot of difference in their life. And this is very important. So if you look for the economic empowerment programs, some example from Indonesia. Indonesia has a law managing Zakat, and I invite everyone here to go and see what they are doing exactly. They are differentiating the categories of poor and needy. We have 4 categories. We have people who are permanently incapable. We have people who are temporary without capabilities, but we have people who are lagging skills, and the 4th category, people who are lagging capital. So it is very evident that for the first 2 category, people who are permanently incapable to work, like disabled, old, crazy, seriously ill, or also temporary, we can content, or we can be happy to distribute some of consumptive zakat. I mean, goods and perhaps money for basic needs. However, if people are receiver of zakat are already able to work, but they lack skills or they lack money, I guess here we can use our brain and our fatwas and our great muftis who can tell the zakat distributor that to stop to distribute money and think about distributing a productive zakat. We'll see what is a productive zakat. So, I mean, the productive zakat will be a sort of the example of Indonesia for productive zakat is very simple in front of us, and this is a program for Banzas, which I hope that someone of the audience here from Indonesia, from Banzas, to see that we start by getting this mustahak. You see, we start here. There's a guy who the receiver the zakat, he's mustahak. So we start by forming the groups. We are going for economic empowerment with a model. This is a model. So we design what should we do for them. We group them. We see the requirement. I'll show you later on what are the requirements. So the requirement is to be able to work, to have certain skills, or even to have certain desire to go for a skill. So once we do, we start by assessment. So we know the profile of people. What are their skills? What are their assets? Do they have a space at home? Do that perhaps before they have this kind of previous work so they can work, or one of their family members can work? So we do the review and approve, and we put them in entrepreneur school where they can get some skills, some value for getting the money and make the production with a kind of skill. It's not just to give them the money. It's not just to tell them that we'll train you, but we have kind of model. So we have the formation group, we have the strengthening the group, then we have the self-reliance of the group. When we start an agreement, with a sort of card Hassan. We give them the money and we start to submission of assistant. The assistant here might be in a training, might be in money, might be in coaching and mentorship, in education. So we have kind of process where we end by a definite targeted example. I'll give you an example from Egypt, which we are implemented now. Egypt has a huge social net, safety social net program named Zakat and Karama. And many countries like Yemen and Ghana and several countries in the world are using the Zakat as part of the social safety net. I mean, people who are receiving social safety net normally everywhere in the Muslim countries or in other non-Muslim countries are the ultra poor. So imagine that we have a database in Egypt actually with 35 million individuals who are recorded in a huge database. So the Egyptian government, Ministry of Social Solidarity, designed a program named Forsa. Forsa in Arabic means opportunity. So start by inviting those people, selecting certain governorates and certain areas where we invite people for awareness and self-esteem and nudging session. Then after they are registering in the program and they divide it into two parts, part for training and asset transfer and the part for training to employment. This program aimed to graduate 50,000 families out of poverty within 2 years. It started in 2020 and due to COVID-19, it will extend 1 year. So it would end in 2023 where we have to graduate this 50,000 families. So the mechanism of graduation is so simple. I mean, the social safety net recipients are exactly the same category and they are receiving some zakat. And we have here another example from Egypt where a social bank, Nasser Social Bank, this is the first worldwide social bank established after Islamic Bank in Bahrain and then in the Emirates. It starts according to the Sharia compliant early Islamic banking in 70s. It started in 1971. This bank has a particularity that the bank manages, and by the law, more than 4,000 Zakat committee distributed all over the territory. So the Zakat community are collecting money from the Zakat areas where and villages where they are, and they are guaranteeing the economic empowerment program named Mastura. So all the women in the villages where they are selecting they are getting the Zakat, they are collecting the Zakat, they have different categories for spending the Zakat money, but they are having with the bank. The bank is managing the Zakat committee, which is destined for women to go for card Hassan with no interest, with no collateral. Only the Zakat committee will recognize the beneficiary. So here we have kind of double interest because the committee will select will collect the money, but also will select and contribute in the economic empowerment, and this gives the bank as well kind of each in the social dimension. I'll give you another example from Congo where this kind of program, we call it from subsistence to sustainability. And this is very nice program where we have a rural area. We can design an intervention for the poor and for the Zakat recipient. And this program is 100% for ultra poor who are eligible for the Zakat, like miskin or fakir, where we have three main actions. The first action is promoting farmers' participation in local development. We bring farmers. Here we are talking about rural area. The second is contributing to the good governance of the area, and the third is supporting the research and innovation. So during the process of producing certain agriculture and agribusiness product, we focus on nutrition and gender equality and sustainable agriculture. So the issue here is merging the economic inclusion, financial inclusion with money and Zakat collection, but also focusing in areas like nutrition. Nutrition is very important for the health of the family and for the ummah, health. We can't imagine any development without healthy people. Gender equality, because people are distributed. And this is pure program which is destined to raise or uplift the ultra poor through very linked issue. I will, before I end, I will stop by this. In fact, I'm here trying to give you kind of roadmap, foundation activity for utilization of Zakat for economic empowerment. And this is according to my vision. We need to have three steps. we have to raise the possibility, we have to raise the desirability or the desire, and we have to raise the acceptable. If we are using the money of Zakat, and I know that our Mufti, Mr. Yousuf and Mr. Ateeq talked about the eligibility of how we can spend Zakat. Zakat is not open for any spending. It has a categories and has a kind of Sharia boundaries we have to respect. So we have to start by raise a possibility. Raise a possibility, it means provide sustainable business model for economic empowerment. I mean, all the Zakat organizations should have kind of know-how. I mean, develop and diffuse the knowledge about using the Zakat for economic empowerment. I mean, today, what I see in different Muslim countries, and I visited more than 42 countries, a lot of programs are very primitive. We are spending the money, but we don't see that development happen. So we have to raise the possibility that we can do. The second, we have to raise the desirability. I mean, the people should have certain norms, value, and culture. So raising the awareness about the problem of empowering Zakat receiver. A lot of Zakat organizations right now don't see that kind of urgent of need. We need to have it immediately. I mean, they need to have it, but not that much kind of urgent. We have to advocate sustainable Zakat collection. Our friends in both speakers mentioned that kind of, we have to pay the Zakat. Otherwise, why we are here? Why we are talking about using the Zakat if we can't collect it? Offering Zakat recipients an alternative. We are not systematically talking about distributing goods and distributing the money. We have to have empowering program. All the Zakat organizations should think about how to manage that dimension. Expectation of people are changing. And the Zakat givers are now thinking about why you are not seeing those people developing. We are paying them every year the same amount of money, but we don't see that progress in their life. Inspiring Zakat recipients to demand of job or and this is very important. We have also to inspire, to nudge the Zakat recipients towards they should be economically empowered, and they should be later on Zakat givers. Supporting the growing impact of investment, as I just mentioned, we have to see the fruit of the Zakat in our community. We have to see reduction of poverty, strong economic alleviation, and graduation from poverty. And last point, we have to raise the acceptable. We have to go back to our muftis and our scholar and to discuss that question. You know better than me. A lot of people here are specialists in the question of transporting the Zakat, the term of the Zakat, the categories. We have to respect the rules. So raising the standard through the new fatwas, we have to have a standard. We understand that we have different fatwas, different areas, but we have to leverage the standard. Now we have kind of index, and some of our friends and our speakers in this conference talk about the Zakat standardization and ISO. We have to talk about this because it's so important. We have raising standards through the certification and labeling, fueling the discussion and changing the society and the religious perception of the economic empowerment. Economic empowerment should be the aim of the Zakat. So we end by, by this. I'm sorry, I talk very quickly. The world, I mean, for a lot of people, the world is divided into haves and have not. It's so clear that people who are receiver of the Zakat, they are in the part of have-nots. So Zakat should bridge the gap of have-nots, shifting them from have to of scales. You know, this is our mission today, is to think about how to make them in the part of have, how to leave that part of have-nots. I don't have a scale, I don't have money, I don't have the ability. This is a mission. A new mission, I guess. So we have to think from subsistence to sustainability through the creation of ecosystem for the change. You know, the economic empowerment ecosystem should monitorizing their potential marketplace. Those people, as Professor Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, said, the marketplace of the poor in the world is estimated to be $5 trillion. You don't have to estimate the power of poor. They are producers and they are buyers. So with innovation and evidence-based, we have to focus on evidence-based because we have no time luxurious to try every day a new program. Shifting Zakat receiver to Zakat giver, this should be our mission. And I end by this book. I'm sorry to use this Western books and Western quotes, but I like this book because this is very alarming you see, Taylor Cowan mentioned that this average is zero. I mean, he estimated that he projected that the world is going for this kind of modern economy where a small minority, highly educated and able to work collaboratively with the automated system, will become the wealthy aristocracy. Unfortunately, while the vast majority will earn a little, they will survive with dealing with low price goods produced by the first group, living in the shutdown and working with complex automated production system. I'm very sorry for this, but this is kind of alarm that if we don't go quickly for the shift from zakat receiver or recipient to zakat giver by the economic empowerment, we will increase. I mean, the inequality will increase, and we will need more and more people to give zakat, and this one might be a drastic challenge for the society. So I mean, today is a day I'm very happy and honored and pleased to talk in this zakat talk regarding the economic empowerment by the zakat, because I did a lot of articles in the media in Egypt in several places. I wrote a book about how we can use Islamic economy for the rise of Muslim Ummah, for economically viable and growing Ummah where we don't have to see this kind of poverty as such. I thank you for your time, and I hope I'm not extremely taking technical issues with you.
No, not at all, Dr. Atef. Jazakumullah khair for wonderful exchange of thoughts. Mashallah, it was very good to hear from you. You have given us many new terminologies, starting from tamkeen being an empowerment in Arabic, but at the same time, what does empower means when it comes to zakat? And very important aspect of zakat to deal with as a macroeconomic factor, that it is not part of way how we give zakat or whom we give the zakat, but there should be a productive way of giving zakat, wherein we have recipients of zakat reducing every year and giving a giver of zakat increasing every year. And if we see this disparity between the giver and receiver, that itself means that we are not following the zakat system to the core. Mashallah, Jazakumullah khair from your 40 different countries, experiences, what all you have shared. I think India is big receiving all your inputs, and inshallah, we'll try to adapt as much as possible. Doctor, before quickly we wind, I have some questions here which we would request you to quickly, if you can answer, that would be really nice. Like one of the question here is, Irfan Mullah is asking, how many years will it take for a zakat taker to become a zakat giver, as per your experience?
Yeah, this is a good question. By the way, I worked one project in Calcutta, some villages next to Calcutta in West Bengal, and we have very diversified category of people. We have ultra poor, we have poor, we have nearly poor. So it depends in the status of the receiver. In some areas where we have extremely rural areas with no opportunity, with no economic or employment opportunity, so we have to inject a lot of money. It depends. So we don't have a cycle. But let's say that if we have a level of education which is not extremely low, we can build on quickly on the scales, and we can find, most of the time we don't think about finding a job for the zakat receiver. We always think about give him a tool or money, but we don't think about helping him find a job. And there are some examples here, even in Egypt. I'm currently in Egypt, and there are a lot of initiatives where we can just inject some training, and zakat might cover the training itself or coaching. So there is no number of years for the program, but it depends on the level of the poor. If extremely ultra poor is people who are the poorest. They have no scale, no money, perhaps they are deprived from even housing. So it depends, but we don't have kind of a standard.
Jazakallah khair for that answer, Dr. Atif. One more question is, as you mentioned about the multi-dimensional way of calculating the zakat. Now the criteria is changed into multi-dimensional. So we could also see in some cases, as asked by our brother Muhammad Aqib, where he says that what about the imbalance which is created because of one particular expenses, which would suddenly hamper the pockets or the savings of what Muslims have. So how do we cater to this? We do have to calculate by multi criteria, but one criteria will take our savings away. So how to calculate zakat in such case?
Yeah, in fact, without getting the question of calculation, I mean, when we look for the multi-dimension poverty, it is important for the both, because if we look for the level of education of poor people, there is a strong link between poverty and the education level. If people are not getting their kids in the school, their kids will be poorer than them, because they will not have no jobs, no income. So if we are forcing the poor people, if we give him a money, as we call it, the World Bank call it condition cash transfer. Condition cash transfer, it means we give him the money with certain condition. So we force him to go for his kids for this education. We force him to make that medical checkup. If he doesn't take care of medical checkup, he might be ill and his kids as well. So let's say the dimension of spending might be guided by the Zakat organization itself, because the poor people, the poor guy will not be having that. The question of empowerment, empowering him, is to give him the ability to decide for himself. So if he's not able to see the dangers, he's not able to see the threat of not giving his kids to school because he's pretending he doesn't have money. But the question, if the Zakat organization is giving money, the Zakat organization is also responsible. As the money the power of Zakat has two powers. In fact, the power of belief and the power of responsibility. We believe in God and so we pay it, but we believe in responsibility. So our responsibility is to make sure that multi-dimension poverty is respected. So he has to spend some of the Zakat or some of our spending in his education, his health, and also his ability to earn money. It's not only to take the basic needs.
We would like to end the session in time, Doctor, but last one question I would like to request you to please do answer. Can zakat be used to fight legal cases against our community people, or to free up some prisoners who are there in the prison? And can we use the zakat amount for this reason?
In fact, and we have different scholars here. I was a CEO of Family Bank in Bahrain, and I suggested for our Sharia advisory board to use some of the donation for the gharimin, for people who are credit collapsed. You know that a lot of young people, particularly ladies or young, who's really not expert in business, they can get a small loan to start a business, and the business suddenly feel or collapsed, and they are going directly to the prison because they don't have the ability to pay. So in terms of gharimin, in fact, gharimin, that we are getting people from jail because they have debt, they didn't pay the debts. So we are, in Egypt currently, there is a huge initiative. Every year they have about 30 or 40,000 women, particularly for women, are getting out of the prison for this gharimin. So we use the zakat money for gharimin. We have also now very innovative initiative the Islamic Development Bank is trying to use also, is how to make credit guarantee scheme through this gharimin, because we are not able to wait until they become gharimin to pay them. If we can train them or make any kind of support before they become gharimin. But let's say that gharimin is one category, and it is being used in many countries in the world to get out of the prison, particularly poor people, poor ladies who are getting a small amount of money are not able to pay it. So we pay it for them, but we are not able to get out of the prison any criminal or we know that this is very strict. Poor guy who doesn't have the ability to pay a small debt, we can pay it, but not a businessman who took it's very Islam and Sharia is also to ask your heart. It goes with the logic, so it's doable for poor people that we pay their debts, but we are not able to pay any kind of other fractions which is penalized by that kind of action.
Jazakallah khair, Doctor. Can I request you to please stop sharing your screen so that I can share my screen?
Okay, I'll put my email as well in case anyone wants to communicate with me. It was a pleasure being with you.
You can.
Jazakallah khair for this kind of talk, and very fruitful opportunity for a lot of us. Thanks a lot.
Yes, the likewise here, Doctor. Jazakallah khair for sharing all your thoughts. It was really very amazing to listen from you. And Jazakallah khair for all our participants for patiently listening to us. As promised by Zaim brother, we will be trying to share the presentations with all of you all once we have received from all our speakers. I would like to end the talk by telling that yes, AMP and IndiaZakat.com, We are not taking any money to serve the people who are recipients of the zakat. At the same time, there are certain zakats which are like, even exempted from tax also, as well as you are fulfilling the obligation of zakat also. So please do connect with indiazakat.com and make your zakat more profitable, more empowering. Jazakumullah khair. With this, I, Muhammad Zamir Hussain, would like to sign out. Good night. Shabba khair, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.